Hi there everyone, this is the week 8 lab. We're going to be going over events in JavaScript. So I've already downloaded our lab files. I have them I have them unzipped in my lab examples folder where I've been keeping stuff in a file called week 8 Baker. This is project 1 for chapter 9 in the hands-on exercises in the back of the book. I have added some extra steps that the book has not added because I feel like they were missing, and it's important to kind of walk you through them because they're not in things you inherently think about unless you've been doing this for a while. So, if we look at our files here, I have too many things open. There it is. Okay. We have our HTML file, which is this lovely file right here. We have our CSS file, our JavaScript file, which is what we're going to be working on. We have 4 images and 4 videos. Notice that the images and the videos are named the same. The difference is their file type. Videos are an MP4 and the images are JPEGs. Okay. Alright, so let's look at our project here. So we've already got the files. Looking at our HTML, we've got an empty aside section. We've got a section that has a video player in it. And then we've got some controls down here. We've got a progress bar. We've got a skip backwards button, a skip forwards button, a play button, and a stop button. And then we have a volume, which is an input that is a range with a minimum of 0 and a max of 1 that steps at 0.05 per increment and a value of 1. Okay, those are the important bits, so kind of keep those in mind. We've got our JavaScript file here. I've already kind of given you some of the stuff that you'll need. The main thing that I've given you is the event listener up here. So this is looking for the DOM content loaded, which is what we talked about in our lectures, that it's looking for the HTML to be completely loaded, all of our objects to be loaded before it happens. And then we've got an anonymous function here that says, when this content is loaded, do all these things. And we're going to be working inside this function, okay? So this is the endpoint of our function here. That's the ending bracket, that's the ending to our parentheses, and then of course we have our lovely semicolon there. We have some variables in play. We have a variable called symbol play, that is our little triangular play symbol. We have our pause symbol. We have an array of files that are the names of all of our files without their extension. We have a variable called video that goes out to the HTML and grabs the ID video player. Same thing with an ID of play for our play button. Same thing with the ID of stop for our stop button. Same thing with our progress bar, our volume input. And then this last one here is our skip buttons. And it's going out and grabbing anything with a data set on it of data-skip. So in our skip buttons, they have these data skip values of 5. We're going to be using those to skip forward 5 or back 5, okay? So, we've got the files array. So examine it, notice our files array. We've noticed it. The 4 elements in the array correspond to the names of the image and videos files. This is just, going over what I've just went over. Step 1 is just noticing all the things. Step 2, we're actually going to get working. So step 2, we're going to create a function that is going to create a list of available videos by adding image elements to the aside element. So let's break this down. So the first thing is we need to create our video list. So something to know about this lab is since I gave you these event handlers, the functions are already named. So when we name our functions, we need to match these exactly Otherwise, it will never work. Okay? So let's start with our first one. We have a function of create video lists. So making sure they match, I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste. We're passing through our files array. Let's open our brackets here. And to do that, let's break it down. Loops through the files array and adds the image element to the aside element. Okay, we're going to work backwards and then forwards. We need to grab the aside element first. Since we only need it for this function, I'm going to go ahead and add it in the function, but otherwise you could add it up here, okay? So let's do a constant called aside that goes out to our document, that queries it and selects it if it is an element named aside. In plain English, that is what this line does. Is it sets a variable called aside to something in our document that is named aside. Okay? So if we hop over here, aside, right? All right. Okay. Next thing we need to do, now we can work forwards. So we've grabbed our aside, so we need to loop through the files array. So how do we do that? Well, let's create a for loop here. So we're going to say for let f, so we're creating a variable there called f of files. So each item in files, sorry, I hit the wrong button and it's bugging me about the spacing. Okay, there we go. Do this thing. Okay, so what do we want to do while we're going through each item in files? Well, we want to create a variable called image, and we're going to set that image to create a new element called image. Because if you just put document.createElementImage, you're not going to be able to target it with the file name like you need to. So just like how we had to go out and grab the aside, we have to create our image element first, right? So we're going to do constant image, go out to our document, and create an element called image. Okay? Alright, so for every item that is in the files array, create a variable called image, and then go out to the document and create an element called image that's we're going to set to that variable. And then for that image, we're going to set our source, which is where it looks for our file, right? And you know how I couldn't get it to work last time? We're going to get it to work this time. So we're going to use a back quote, which is directly to the left of the number 1 on your keyboard. It's got that in the tilde. So I'm hitting a back quote. And we're using the variable, oh sorry, our images live in the images folder. So we got to put that first, right? Because otherwise it won't know where to go. And then we're going to use our $, brackets, F, brackets. Okay? That's saying for that item that we are currently on, put that in the images thing, right? Last thing is we got to have our file type. If we didn't have a file type, it wouldn't be able to reach that image. And then the very last thing for that line, got to have our semicolon, right? So this is saying create a variable that goes out and creates an element, and then with that set the source of that to our whatever that file name is of that. So, you know, nature8399 whatever .jpeg. Okay? And then what's the last thing we need to do? We need to tell it where to place it in the document. So the way that we do that is I want to say it is 433. No. 431. This is where we are going to look at our tables here. So this is chapter 9 in our book. So we have created an element. Now we're going to append it, which means add it to the right before the very end of the thing that we're doing. So we're going to add it to right before the closing aside tag, right? So we're going to do aside. So grab the aside, append the child to it of image. Okay, so right now, if we look at our lab, our aside should be blank. It is. Okay, I'm gonna do some things, and then we're gonna check it. So don't do this part. I am just showing you for example. Okay. I've just commented out all of our event handlers so that we can see the image. So let's reload. Our images show up here, and they all have our sources, yeah? All right, so that works. Okay. Oops. 4. Okay. I am going to keep these commented out for now so that I can show you as we go through things how they work, okay? Like I said, do not comment these out. And if you do, make sure that you're going through and deleting them with me when I do them, okay? All right, so the next thing we're going to do, go back over here. In your loop, we are going to need to add an event, click event handler for each image, okay? So in our for loop, we are going to add, so we're going to, for each image, we're going to add an event listener. I know I said event handler in there, but they're actually called event listeners. The event listener is listening for a click event, and when it hears that click, it's going to do this thing. So in this case, we are not going to name this function because we don't need to. This is an anonymous function, just like this one up here. We're saying when there's a click found, do this thing. And we are going to affect the event object or get information about it. That's all the E is that we're looking for an event object. So when the image is clicked, current video will stop playing. So I'm going to give you a hint here. This is what we need to do because I've already given you the name of it. So we've already got a stop playing function in there. We just need to call it. So we're going to do stop playing. It is a method or a function. Sorry, I'm used to C#. Those are called method. It is a function, so we need to have our parentheses. And then the last thing that it wants us to do is to change the source attribute of the video to the clicked image. So to do that, we do video, just like the image, .src equals back quote videos, because that is our video folder, right? If we look at our folders here, videos, same kind of thing, $, bracket, F, bracket, make sure you're using the correct bracket, .mp4, okay? Back quote to end it, and semicolon. This is the exact same thing as writing out video.source is equal to single quote videos / single quote plus f plus single quote dot mp4 single quote semicolon. This and this are equivalent, but there's a lot less quotation marks to keep track of. So that's why we do it that way. All right, so the 2 slashes just comment something out. Code is going to completely ignore that, right? All right, so I'm not going to test it yet because if we, well, I'll go ahead and show you. If we test it right now, it's not going to do anything because if we click on one of these, stop playing is not defined because we're calling a function that we haven't defined yet. So our next step is going to be to call that or to create that function. All right, so to do that, we need to make sure that we're within our original function, the add event listener, but outside of this function. So I'm going to line down a couple of times and I'm going to say function stop playing. Okay. We are not passing anything through it, so we don't need to pass any sort of like E or any other event or anything like that. Okay. Okay. So we have created the function. Right now there's not anything in it. For the stop button, so I'm going to go ahead and uncomment that because this is the one we're working on. It's also called right here. There, there, and there. And we want it to do 3 things. We want it to pause the video. So here's something really cool about JavaScript for videos, like media. In this case, video and audio. There's a couple of built-in functions. Play is one, and pause is one. So we just have to call that function. So we're going to do video dot pause. Helps if I can spell. Video dot pause. Parentheses. Make sure you get your parentheses in there because this is a function. Okay? So that's number 1. We are pausing the video. Video dot pause. Next, change its current time property to 0. Okay, that's a little bit different, but we can do that. So same kind of thing. It's an attribute this time, not a function. So we're going to do video dot current time because I went ahead and gave you the attribute there. And we are going to set that to 0. And what that means is it's going to set the current time all the way back to the beginning of the video. And then we need to update the play/pause button and progress track. Now this one's a little bit of a tricky wicket, okay? Because we haven't actually done those yet. But the way that we're going to do that is these are on the play and pause button, update button, and handle progress is for our progress bar. So if I were doing this linearly, you would come back and add those once you've written the function, but I'm going to go ahead and do it now so we don't forget. So I'm going to do update button, parentheses, semicolon, and handle progress, right? Progress, parentheses, semicolon, right? So I'm going to go ahead and comment those out because we're actually mentioning those again. Okay. So now we can, to test, I'm going to show you this. Okay. We're just going to create holders for now. Function, update button, and function, handle progress. Right now, those are just blank functions that don't do anything, right? Well, let's test our stuff. All right. So we have our files up here. when we click on one of our images, it should change our video source down here to the video that is on the picture, right? All right, so that one works, that one works, that one works. Good. Now obviously our buttons are not going to do a darn thing right now because we haven't set those up yet. Same thing with our volume. Does nothing. We haven't set those up. But we can change our video source easily. Let me show you on the inspector. So right now the video source is set to wave. If we click on waterfall, you see that it updates that. Same thing right there. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just minimize that so it can hang out. Alright. So we have created a loop that creates our image files, adds an event listener to it that stops the video, and then sets the source to the video file of whatever one we just clicked. And we've created a function to stop the video playing that pauses the video, resets the current time to 0 so that it resets it back to the beginning, and then does something called update button and update progress, but we don't know what those do yet, right? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We're just gonna, I'm gonna leave these down here for now. We'll get to those in just a minute. So let's look at number 5. We're going to create a function to play or pause the video if the play or pause button is clicked. Now again, we already have the name for this, right? It's play or pause. So I'm just gonna go ahead and grab it. I'm gonna stop commenting these out. Okay. That's gonna bug me, but that's fine. So function play or pause. We're not passing anything through it. All right. So we need to think through the logic of this. So we need to say that if the video is paused and we click the thing, we need to play it. Otherwise, if the video is playing and we click that, we need to pause it. So in plain English, that's an if-else statement. So if, another cool thing about JavaScript is it has this built in. The video is paused, so video.paused. It can check for that. That's really cool, right? Then we're going to do video.play parentheses. That's because this is, again, a function. This function is built in. I will try to remember. If I don't remember, somebody call me out on the discussion board. But I will try to remember to put up a list of built-in functions for media files, as well as built-in properties and stuff, okay? And then else, so if it is not paused, if it's playing, we want to video.pause. Okay? So I'm going to save. So we've created a function called play or pause. If a video is paused, we're going to go ahead and play it. And if it is playing, we're going to go ahead and pause it. So let's see here. I'm going to go back over. I have saved. I'm going to reload. Look at that. It also should work if I click on the video. Now why does that happen? That happens because the video has an event listener on it and the button has an event listener on it. Okay? Alright, so we've created our play or pause. So that is number 5. Okay, so now we're going to get into a little bit hairier stuff. So we need to create a function to implement the skip forward and backward buttons. So let's go ahead and look up here. So for this one, and the stuff I've already given you, for all the buttons that are tagged with skip button, add an event listener that's looking for a click called skip. So we need our function to be called skip. So function skip. This one, we are going to need to know some information about the event. So we're putting that E in there because we're passing through information about the event. Now, why are we doing that? We're doing that because we're going to end up looking for this value right here, the skip value that tells us how far to move the video forward or backward. So that's why we need to pass that. Okay, so let's think through the logic of this. So we need to, when the skip button is hit, whether it's forward or backward, we need to adjust the current time of our video by the value in our skip. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we need to do is get our video current time. And we're going to use a plus equals here. The reason we're using a plus equals is because we want that current time value and then to adjust that rather than just setting it to a time. So if we were just setting the video current time like we did with the stop playing to 0, you just use the equals. For the plus equals, it's the exact same thing as saying equals current time plus whatever we're doing. It's just a quicker way to write that, but I want you plus equals, not equals plus. I want you to get used to seeing that and knowing what it means. So it's the same kind of thing as our I plus plus in our loops. Plus equals is take that current value and add to it. You also have a minus equals. In this case, since we're using a minus or a negative and a positive, we can just use plus because adding a negative is the same thing as subtracting. All right, so here's the thing that is not inherent. When we grab that value, that skip, that data-skip value, it does not realize that it is a number. So it's bringing it in as a string, like as a character. So we need to use it as an integer or a number. So we're doing parse int. That just means use this as a number. Since we're using our E value to pull it in, we're going to say, hey, grab that E, that event, look at the target of that event. So look at the thing that called it. And then if you think back to our lecture, what are those data values called? They are a data set value. And then what is the data set value named? Skip. So to go through it all again, we're saying set the video current time to whatever the current time is plus the target of what you just clicked. So it's either going to be the +5 or -5, the data set of it with the data set value of a skip. So this is our data set. This is our data set name. If this was data-id, we would have dataset.id. If it said data-cat, it would say dataset.cat. Okay? And then we have to pull it in as a number so that it knows that it can do math to it. So that is our skip function. Okay? So let's save it, do a little test. All right. So we're going to come here. And the progress bar is not going to work right now, but you should be able to see a change once I'm playing here. So I'm going to skip forward, and then skip back. So you can see that it's working. There we go. All right, perfect. So that is the skip forward and skip back. And again, to do that, we adjusted the current time. This parse int, just know that if you're bringing something in from the document, it's coming in as a string, basically. Unless you are explicitly setting it as an ID when you pull it into your variable, you do have to change it to be able to do those math functions for it. Okay. So this one is going to take 4 different pieces. Okay? it is going to take these variables, it is going to take our play button, and it is going to take the text value of our play button, which is this right here. Okay? So those are our 4 different pieces. So what is this one called? This one is our update button. I've already done it right here. So I'm just going to go in between it. But if you didn't do that part when I was doing it, because I told you not to do it, which I honestly can't remember if I told you not to do it or not, just function, update button, parentheses, and then that. Okay? Alrighty. So I'm going to show you something called a conditional operator. This ternary means that there are 3 arguments in it. Okay? This is the functional equivalent of using an if-else statement. Okay? So I'm doing this so that you get used to both. So the first one we wrote an if-else, and this one we are going to write something else. So I am going to explain it as I go, and then I will again break it down further once I'm done. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a variable that's going to hold our value. So just like we did up here, we created a variable to hold our image, right? So, icon. Now, we need to, if we think through the logic, we need to look at the play button, and we need to say if it is set to pause, if the video is set to paused, just like up here, then the icon should be play, right? The icon is not going to be pause. It's not going to be this one because it's the opposite of what it currently is. So if the video is paused, the play icon should be showing. If the video is playing, then the pause icon should be showing. Functionally, this. So the way that these conditional operators work is you have your condition that you're checking for. So video paused, we're just using that from the exact same one up top for the player paused. And then we have a question mark. So if that video is paused, if that is true, do this. We are going to set the icon variable to symbol play. Okay? So this is functionally saying if video paused, instead of, I'll write it out. Okay. If video.paused, it would be icon is equal to symbol play, else it would be equal to symbol pause. Okay? This is the exact same thing as what we were writing up above. So, if the video is paused, then icon is equal to symbol play. Otherwise, so else, it is equal to symbol pause. Yes. That is all that statement is saying. This syntax and this syntax up here are the exact same thing. It's just the variables that are different. And then the last thing we need to do, remember we have that 4th piece, is we have the text value of our play button, right? So right now the text value of that play button is set to this symbol right here. So we're going to overwrite that. We're not going to do a plus equals, we're going to do an equals. So we're going to do our play button dot text content equals icon. So we have created a variable called icon. If the video is paused, icon is equaling the play symbol. If the video is not paused, then the icon is equaling the pause symbol. Then we're setting the play button text content, so what is in between that button opening tag and closing tag, to what icon is. So let's save it, and we're going to test it. So now if we click our play or pause, then it should update. Alright. We've done something wrong. We don't have anything in our console. Let me make sure that I have not made an oopsie in terms of spelling. Symbol pause, symbol play. Video paused. Play button. And then TEXT, big C, capital CONTENT equals icon. Okay. Make sure I have update button. Update button. Did I forget to refresh? I forgot to refresh. Woo! Goodness. Alright. So, there you go. Since we have that event listener on there, that's doing that. And then if we stop it, it's going to reset it back. So here's the cool thing. Pause, stop, resets it back and play. Okay? Awesome. We're making great progress. That was the hardest one. This next one involves some math, but we're going to walk through it, so it's going to be okay. Alright. So, create a function to update the progress bar depending on the state of the video. What does that mean? That means that this progress bar should be filling up as the video fills up. Yes? Cool. So how do we do that? Well, let's think about it. Think about this bar as a 100% at this end and 0% at this end. How do we get a percent? Well, we take the total duration of the video and we divide what the video currently is at by that total duration. Okay? So if the video is 60 seconds long, so 1 minute, and our current time is at 30 seconds, then that would be a 0.5, which we times by 100 is 50%. Okay? I hope that makes sense, because I'm not a math teacher, so I'm not the best at explaining math. But look at that progress bar as a percentage of the whole duration of the video. So we're going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to create a constant called progress. And we are going to figure out our percentage there. So our first one is our video.current-time. That's our numerator. Our denominator is video.duration. This is another one that's built in for us, okay? So the whole length of the video is the video duration. It's like doing dot length of an array. And then we're going to times it by 100. Alright, so that's going to give us, at any given time, what the progress is of our video. Now, how do we handle updating the progress bar? So to do that, we need to notice that our progress bar is just a div with a div ID of progress filled in it. Okay? And so we need to look at our CSS here for a second. This is the important bit. These two right here. Progress and progress filled. So these are display flex and have a flex basis. Okay? So that's how we're going to change it. We are going to grab our progress bar, which goes out and grabs this progress filled, which is currently set to 0, and we're going to adjust that style. So we're going to say that the progress bar style of flex basis should be equal to back quote, so that is at directly to the left of the 1 key on your QWERTY keyboard, not your number pad, your QWERTY keyboard. And then $, bracket, progress, bracket, and then this is read in terms of percent, right? If we look at our CSS, it's set to 0%. So we're going to change that style to be whatever our percent, or whatever that progress is, percent. Okay? Don't forget your semicolon. And then we're going to save it. So now let's take a look. I'm going to reload my page here. I'm going to play. And then I'm going to skip forward, skip back. Did I forget something again? Progress. Progress bar, style, flex basis, 0%, use video current time, video duration. Alright, what if I handle progress? Bear with me just a moment, guys and gals and non-binary friends. Handle progress. So the constant progress, video, current time, video duration times 100. Don't have any errors in our con. See, we should be seeing this update. So I've messed up somewhere. Oh, golly, I bet some of y'all were screaming at me. Haha. Okay. So my bracket was not containing my function. Alright. So it should be function handle progress. We've got our parentheses, our open brackets, our close brackets. Oopsie daisy. Got a whole field of oopsie daisies. Alright. Look at that progress bar. If we pause it, it goes back, goes forward, goes back, it goes forward. Alright. Just shows to go ya that even if you've done this for years and years and years, you still do silly things. Alright, so I saved the easiest one for last. The parts of this one is to create a function to change the volume based on the value of the volume slider. So this is our last one right here. So we are using the vol, and it is an input, so it is super easy to change it. So we're going to do a function called, what did we call it up there? Change volume. Going to go through and grab that. Going to add our parentheses, and then we're going to add our open bracket. And then the way that we do this is we just set our video.volume equal to whatever the value because it's an input, a vol is. And remember, our vol is our constant up here set to whatever it is with the ID of volume, which is down here an input that starts at a value of 1. It's got a max of 1 and a min of 0. Okay? So we just grab the input value, because remember, inputs have a name and a value. They're pairs. The name is your name of it, so it would be, in this case, volume. And then the value is at between 0 to 1. So we're going to save it again. And then we're going to hop back over here and we're going to refresh. And I've got it all the way up. We're going to put in our closing brackets. Good night, nurse. Save. Okay. Oh, no sound. Sound, no sound. Sound, no sound. Sound, no sound. And there we go. And that's actually it. So we have, to go through it quickly, created a function that takes the file names from our files array up here, creates an image for each of them, adds the source of the image name from our image folder, adds it to the aside section, and adds an event listener called click, or that's looking for click, that does a function that stops playing the video if it's clicked and switches the video source to whatever image we've clicked. We've created a function called stop playing that, when it is clicked, pauses the video, sets the current time back to 0 wherever it is, and runs these two functions here. Functions. Update button and handle progress. We've got a function called player pause that looks if a video is paused. If it is, plays it. If not, it pauses it. We've got our skip function that, depending on whether or not it's forward or backwards, takes the video's current time and adds that value to it, be it +5 or -5. We've got our update button that checks and looks if the video is paused, and if the video is paused, changes the icon that's showing to our play icon, and if it is playing, changes it to the pause, and then sets that text content. And then we've got our progress bar down here that sets the progress to the current time divided by the duration, gives us our percentage, times it by 100, and then sets the style to it, and then our volume. So the last thing we do is we go here and we zip it, and then we upload it to our canvas. And that is it.